this has to be the toughest session of the day, right? When everybody's just like, going on their own thing. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean. Very pleased to be here. So, the title of today's session is about how we can actually build a global refill system, right? But we can't start with the how. I actually just start with the why, and very specifically, why does it matter? Why do refill systems actually matter? So let's just start off with this picture on the background here. So if you look at this picture, it looks like a scene from, when simpler times, when things were a lot simpler, much older. But you could also look at it as a snapshot of when we were actually sustainable. And if people were actually sustainable, even before the word was there, right? We didn't have a term for it. Back then, this was like probably in 1950s, 60s in Singapore. You didn't have to buy a new container every time you needed kerosene, cooking oil, milk, or detergent. You would basically take your tin can, you bring your glass bottle, you go to your provision shop and do your refill. And it wasn't about being trendy. It wasn't anything about sustainable. It was just practical. It was kind of obvious. It just made sense. Like, why wouldn't you refill, right? The packaging is so expensive. But over time, through modern retail developments, we've lost that sense of practicality, or rather the definition of practicality had changed. And what we are saying is that it's about time for us to go back and basically look at how we can be sustainable again. Now, if you take a look at the picture behind me now, that's what a modern refill station looks like, or rather a modern refilling station, a network of stations look like. So we are embedding technology, making it smart and absolutely packaging free. But we're not taking the old ways of doing it and bringing it to this new way. We are literally just taking the values of practicality and basically reimagining it for the 21st century. And that's really what we are trying to achieve here, is that we can actually be sustainable and ultimately go back to the old days, looking at certain things that we have done before and making it new all over again. This is the current state that we are in currently. So this is a chart of the world's largest single-use plastic producers, the waste producers in the world. And this surprises many people, right? Number one up there, Singapore. People get a shock. Like, wow, I thought we were, green, clean, and efficient. And by all accounts, we are. We are clean, green, and efficient. But there are things that, the systems itself, we've built an entire system that is really just dependent on disposal. We've actually built everything to be disposed of. And every single little things that we do, we consume water from plastic water bottles, we buy detergent in detergent bottles, we buy cling wrapped, groceries. All those little items essentially add up into the single-use plastic problem that affects all of us today. Now, I'm not saying recycling is bad, but recycling itself isn't the solution either. So if you look on the left here, this is very common. You've got a smart refill station, a smart recycling bins. They're placed all over town. They're in condominiums, they're in void decks. Well, their role is to basically identify what kind of waste and then ideally sort them out, accept them, and basically put it go jolly way into recycling. On the right, we have the refill stations. There's a big difference here. On the recycling stations, they consume a lot more energy, and when we go specifically to packaging, packaged products, bottles, a refill station can actually redeem more than 2 times the amount of solve the number of single-use plastic bottles, twice the amount on a per square meter. So it's a lot more efficient to go in the refill, and that's pretty natural, right? Because we're actually preventing the waste from being created in the first place, whereas in the recycling world, you're basically dealing with waste that has already been created. When you look at the reuse and recycling rate, globally, it's less than 10% in plastics. When you look and reusing them in a refill station, it's literally 100%. And obviously, there's no CO2 emissions that comes out of it. So carbon abatement isn't really an issue here because you're just going to be reusing it all over again. But when you start picking up those bottles from the smart recycling bins, there's still going to be an entire value chain where the bottles need to be transported and then basically be processed. Now, the myth of the 100% recycled bottle here. So let's be honest, what do you think when you see a bottle that has that 100%, I'm 100% recycled here? Now, a lot of people will say, hey, that's made of 100% plastic, recycled plastic, and the assumption is that that plastic bottle is going to be recycled over and over again. Well, the sad truth is really just a marketing ploy, right? Because in reality, the supply chain actually looks something like this. You've got a kilogram of waste that is basically generated, you collect them, and then you only generate 60 grams for a plastic bottle. And after which, once you're done with consuming the whatever contents that's in that bottle, it basically comes into downcycled plastic that can't be used for anything at all. So literally, what you're doing, you're slowing down the loop, or rather, going through a couple more loops before it hits the waste bin or the landfills, but you're ultimately still going to be there anyway. So that's something very, very different. In a lot of people's mind, they're thinking it's going full circular, and the only way you can go full circular is when you actually go into refills. Now, let's just zoom in to the everyday, right? So your households. Think about your own personal households, your neighbors, your parents, your grandparents. There are two things that every single household has to purchase on a very regular basis. One, groceries. Two, cleaning products. So both of these you're buying constantly on repeat. Now, when it comes to groceries, a little bit challenging. So groceries, you have to deal with expiration dates, you've got to deal with food hygiene, food safety, you've got to deal with a lot of the regulations. But household cleaning detergents, they are actually a perfect candidate for a refill movement, because ultimately, this is what we call the avoidable single-use plastic. They are products that you need the content, but you don't need the packaging, and they are almost always packed in single-use packaging. And a lot of times, they're also bulky single-use plastics. And here's the good news, and that's where we come in. So imagine this, you take your old bottle that you already have, you go down to a refill station, and then you save 20% or more by buying a refilled product. How we do that? Pretty simple. We take away the packaging, we take away from the shelf space and entire logistics that around delivering those plastic bottles into supermarkets or directly to your doorstep, and then we transfer those savings to residents for households. So the idea here is that you have savings the moment you ditch single-use packaging. And this is what we have built up, an entire network of smart refill stations that are easy to use, completely packaging free, and for the general consumer, it's just going down to the station, tap, pay, refill, and save your money. But more importantly, behind the scenes, we are building an entire ecosystem for brands to scale. We are actually helping brands transform their entire business models from package to packaging free. And that's what we call scaling. And that's really the important part of it. I was about to bring a station up here to show you how simple it is to do a refill, but I was told by the organizers that we couldn't do that. So let me just show you a very quick video demo here. Simple tap, pay, press start, and 20 seconds, you get your entire detergents. So there's absolutely no weighing, no fiddling around with labels, going to a counter. This works 24/7. They'll be available at your where you live, so that way you basically don't have to travel very far, you don't have to go to the supermarkets, and all of that can be done at your own leisure, 24/7. Now, we can't change people's behavior just by information alone. So a lot of behavior change has to come from when people change their routines. And that's one reason why we've placed all our stations at where people live. So in locations where people live, in HDB void decks, community centers, at condominiums, the idea is that you get familiar with it, you see that all the time. At some point, you're going to realize, you know what, I'm going to give a shot at it. And then once they try, they basically change their routine and say, hey, this is actually pretty acceptable. This is actually, I want to save money and I can bring my bottle down and to refill my detergents. As I mentioned earlier, it's not just about helping consumers go packaging free. We are here to focus on helping brands that really care about the environment to go packaging free as well. So the idea that brands can now in the future sell products without the packaging and saying, hey, just pay for content. Don't need to pay for the bottle. And that's the goal here. We want to be able to embark on a journey to onboard as many brands as possible so that consumers ultimately have the choice. The products that you're familiar with, the name brands that you're familiar with, coming on board to our platform. But beyond that, it's not just about convenience. We're also looking to take this forward, what the future is, right? So today people are looking at or buying the groceries or their cleaning detergents online at e-marketplaces, e-supermarkets. We want to embed a lot of that capability online as well. So imagine this, you go onto your favorite marketplace, you add the detergent that you're familiar with, and now we suddenly give you an offer. Would you like to save 20% more if you choose to redeem? And if you say yes, we do a swap. Now, instead of receiving the goods 2 days later at your doorstep, you can go downstairs, do a refill, we'll generate a QR code so that the machine will be able to accept that prepayment. So the idea here is that we're going to make these refills seamless, even though you're shopping online, and we call this refill commerce. Now, a lot of brands have embarked on the refill journey. We get that a lot, right? We get questioned a lot. So they've actually done a tremendous job of trying to bring refill out into the market. So if you look at Japan, there's Cow and Welshire. In Indonesia, we had Unilever and Saruga. And then in the UK, we've got Formula and Lidl. So these are really serious efforts to try and attempt to bring refill, making refill mainstream. Here's the challenge, right? The assumption here for a lot of these initiatives is that you replace the products that's on shelf at the supermarket with a refill option. The problem is the stores are not built for that. Stores, they work on a basis of impulse buying. They're designing the entire storefront, the store space, the shelf space for impulse buying. The idea that you always have a tag that says super discount, right? Buy two, get one free, or buy two, you get 20% discount. It's all about impulse buying. And if you were to bring that there, it's going to be challenging, because then you'll be challenging a narrative, or what's going to be happening is that you go in and say, oh no, I forgot to bring my bottle. This is more convenient, I'll buy a packaged product. So we've taken this into consideration as part of our design, that we do not do that in store. So a lot of our initiatives is actually bringing it to where the consumers live. And the idea is that we don't need you to change your habit completely. We just need you to come downstairs and do the refill at your own convenience. So people ask us, so where do you place these stations? A very short answer to that is actually we listen to people. We actually collect information through social media, through events, through communication with our on the ground. Where do people actually want our stations? We identify places where people are very passionate about trying to move from packaged to unpackaged products, and that's where we engage on the ground to deploy the stations. So we've deployed, so we've got a pilot phase where we deploy the stations around the island, and we're going to be continuously deploying more and more stations so that people can experience the power of refill. And this is not just an idea, right? It started obviously as an idea, but it's no longer just an idea. So this is very, very real. We have a lot of engagement with community leaders, with grassroots organizations, with the town councils, a lot of negotiations, a lot of convincing, and now we're finally getting that traction and the support that's needed on the ground to actually bring it down to where people live. So we now have our stations at all the HDBs, the void decks. We have them in the community centers and also the condominiums, and also most recently we were awarded by UNDP ASEAN. They had a Blue Innovation Challenge program, and we were identified amongst the 400 applicants as one of the innovations in trying to solve the circular economy problems for cities. Now, Singapore is the perfect place for testing technologies in refilling, and there's 4 main reasons why. The first one should be immediately obvious. Being compact here. We've got a lot of high rises. People live in high rises, which means that a lot of people will congregate in certain areas at certain times of the day. So when you place a station at a common area, you will ultimately reach out to many hundreds of families, right, for a single station. So it's a perfect test bed for city technologies for greening. The second one is really the proximity. Singapore is a hub for many of the FMCG companies, the companies that own all these brands in the cleaning space, where they can make decisions, try innovative products, innovative technologies to solve this problem. So that's really the second reason. Third, we've got strong government support, the SG Green Plan for SG 2030. And last but not least, Singaporeans are very practical and pragmatic, right? You give them an option to go green, they will accept it. Make it cheaper for them, they'll definitely accept it, right? So I think we've got the perfect, really formula, a place that is ideal test bed to actually launch a global refill revolution. And then from here on, we'll then take these technologies across the rest of Asia and the world. Now, the initiatives that we have, whatever I showed you earlier, cannot happen in isolation. There are many people we like to thank for supporting these initiatives. These are the folks that have been, in our discussions, supporting us, giving us ideas, and ultimately giving us the locations to actually place these stations. So a lot of people that we would like to thank. And last but not least, I'd like to thank everybody here for staying back for the last session of the evening, and happy to take on any questions that you may have for our refill revolution. Hey, thank you. Hello. Yeah, there's a mic.
Hi, I'm Tarini.
Hi, Tarini.
My question for you is, what are the main challenges that you are facing, and how do you plan to tackle those?
That's a very good question. So what are the main challenges? I think right now, the biggest challenge is that a refill station has not achieved parity as far as government policies are concerned with recycling, which is really, really odd, because reuse should be upstream, right? It has higher priority. So what I mean by that, giving you a very simple example, is that if we were to place a refill station at a HDB void deck, I have to go through many, many hoops to get approvals for that. Whereas in a recycle bin, you can just place them anywhere. So I think policy changes that has to come in, and I think we're getting there. So I think one of the things that we're working on is really through having these kind of engagements, educating, having dialogues to push for parity for refill technologies to be at the very least equivalent to recycling. Yeah. Any further questions? If there are none, we could end today's session. I'll be around here anyway, so if you feel free to grab me if you have any questions, or if you would like to partner with us here in Singapore. Thank you very much.